All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Most people think that adding actual healthy years to your life requires something totally extreme. You know the drill. Some massive restrictive diet overhaul, a punishing daily workout routine, or maybe a really complicated supplement plan that is practically impossible to stick to. But the data, it actually points in a completely different, much more encouraging direction. What if I told you that you really don't need those extreme measures? By simply stacking a few very small, highly strategic morning habits, you can radically extend your lifespan.
And we're not just talking about a few extra months here. We're talking about a potential 20 years. There's this massive piece of research called the Million Veteran Program Study, where researchers tracked hundreds of thousands of veterans over time. They specifically looked at 8 lifestyle factors starting around age 40. The staggering finding here is that the difference between adopting none of these habits and adopting most of them translated to up to 24 additional years of life for men and 20 or more years for women. So the secret isn't perfection. It's really just about sending a few consistent, positive signals to your biology every single day.
So here is a roadmap for the optimal morning timeline. Number 1, simple bites and sips. Number 2, the power of connection. Number 3, morning light and sleep. Number 4, the 15-minute walk. And number 5, the ideal longevity breakfast. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Simple bites and sips. Starting the day right with nuts and a warm beverage.
Literally, grabbing a small handful of nuts takes what? 30 seconds? Maybe less if you're a fast chewer. But the payoff is absolutely enormous. A massive study in the New England Journal of Medicine tracked over 76,000 adults for 3 decades, and they found that eating nuts 7 times a week led to a 20% lower risk of death from any cause. So why is that? Well, nuts are packed with an amino acid called L-arginine. Your body uses L-arginine to create nitric oxide, which literally helps your blood vessels relax and open up. And hey, if you have to pick just one nut, go with walnuts. They're packed with a plant-based omega-3 called ALA, which is just incredible for fighting inflammation at the cellular level.
Okay, so what are we washing those nuts down with? Probably coffee or tea, right? A lot of people think coffee is just a delivery system for caffeine, but a huge study in JAMA Internal Medicine showed that drinking about 2 cups a day is linked to a 12% lower risk of death. And what's really wild is that decaf shows similar benefits. So the magic isn't actually the caffeine, it's the unique plant compounds, like chlorogenic acid in coffee or EGCG in green tea, which, by the way, is linked to an 11% lower cancer death risk.
Both coffee and tea are completely packed with these magical compounds called polyphenols. Let's actually break down what they do because it's super cool. Imagine your cells are constantly producing these tiny, unstable molecules called free radicals. Kind of think of them like dangerous little sparks flying around inside your body. Over time, those sparks cause damage and inflammation. While polyphenols are the antioxidants that act like cellular fire extinguishers. They literally put those sparks out before they can ignite a fire and cause long-term damage to your biology.
Section 2. The power of connection. Why your nervous system needs a morning chat.
Honestly, the data here is just mind-blowing. A meta-analysis of over 300,000 people found that social isolation spikes your risk of death by 33%, and persistent loneliness spikes it by a terrifying 57%. When you lack positive social connection, your nervous system actually gets stuck in this low-grade chronic fight-or-flight state. That constant quiet stress accelerates the exact biological pathways that drive things like heart disease and dementia. So instead of waking up and immediately doom-scrolling through stressful news by yourself, take just 5 minutes to have a real conversation with your partner, or maybe call a friend. It's literally a life-saving habit.
Moving on to Section 3. Morning light and sleep. How your morning sets up your night.
Deep inside your brain, you've got this master body clock called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. When you get outside and natural morning sunlight hits the specialized receptors in your eyes, it sends a direct signal to the SCN that the day has officially begun. Your cortisol rises, which is actually a great thing in the morning for alertness. But even more importantly, this light exposure sets a 12 to 16-hour countdown timer for your body to naturally release melatonin later that night. So quite literally, your morning light dictates your nighttime sleep.
And optimizing that sleep is absolutely non-negotiable for longevity. An analysis pulling data from over 1.5 million people found that sleeping less than 7 hours a night is associated with a 14% higher risk of death compared to getting a solid 7 to 8 hours. Proper sleep anchoring, which remember starts with that morning sunlight, can actually add 1 to 3 years of healthy life expectancy. And yes, before you ask, even on a cloudy day, the light level outside is still exponentially brighter than your indoor lighting, so get out there.
All right, Section 4, the 15-minute walk, the ultimate morning habit stack.
What's really fascinating about this is that there's absolutely no massive minimum threshold required to start seeing a benefit. A landmark study of over 400,000 people showed that just going from 0 to 15 minutes of regular walking a day reduced mortality risk by 14% and extended life expectancy by 3 years. If you pick up the pace a bit and make it a fast walk, that risk reduction jumps up to nearly 20%. The biggest drop in risk happens the very moment you shift from doing nothing to doing just 15 minutes of something.
Now, here is where the absolute magic of this whole routine comes together. The Million Veteran Program tracked 8 specific longevity factors, right? Well, if you take a 15-minute brisk walk outside in the morning sunlight with a partner or a neighbor, look at what you're doing. You're getting your circadian anchoring, your physical activity, your stress reduction from being outdoors, and your social connection. That is 4 distinct longevity factors knocked out simultaneously in just 15 minutes. It is basically the ultimate habit stack.
Finally, Section 5, the ideal longevity breakfast, fueling up with protein and fiber to prevent crashes. Look, if you eat a refined carb breakfast, like a pastry or one of those sugary yogurts, your glucose spikes, your insulin surges, and then your blood sugar crashes hard, leaving you tired and totally starving by 10 a.m. To break this cycle, you need protein and fiber. Together, they slow down digestion, keeping your blood sugar curve beautifully flat. Even better, protein and fiber naturally stimulate the release of GLP-1, which is a hormone that regulates your appetite. You really don't need extreme measures. Your body can manage this completely naturally if you just give it the right fuel.
So how do we actually build this? It's 3 simple steps. First, start with a really solid protein base. We're talking eggs, Greek yogurt, or a quality protein powder. Second, add high-fiber ingredients. Chia seeds give you about 10 grams of fiber per ounce, while flax seeds give you 8 grams plus those amazing omega-3s. A quick warning though, and you'll definitely want to take this seriously, if your body isn't used to a high-fiber diet, please increase it slowly so you avoid some serious GI discomfort. And third, always hydrate. You need about 8 to 10 ounces of water per fiber dose just to keep everything moving properly.
Now, if you prefer a more traditional breakfast and you want to include bread, use this highly actionable golden rule next time you're walking down the grocery store aisle. For every 10 grams of carbohydrates on the nutrition label, there should be at least 1 gram of fiber. So if a slice of real sourdough or rye bread has 30 grams of carbs, you want to see at least 3 grams of fiber, ideally even 4 or 5. This just ensures that the carbohydrates you're eating are complex enough to keep your blood sugar nice and stable.
So let's take a step back for a second and look at what we've just accomplished. Just by having some nuts with your coffee, chatting with a loved one, stepping outside for a 15-minute walk in the sun, and eating a high-fiber, high-protein breakfast, you have naturally touched on up to 5 of the 8 major longevity factors. And the best part? You've done all of this before 9 a.m.
And I want to leave you with this final, really empowering thought. You do not need to do every single one of these habits perfectly every single day. Some days you might hit all 5. Other days, hey, maybe just 2. But as the data clearly shows, these small, consistent signals repeated over time will profoundly compound. So the data is officially in. If the cure for a shorter lifespan isn't found in some magic pill, but rather in a 15-minute walk and a handful of walnuts, what's really stopping you from reclaiming those 2 decades?